Solène Virio knew something was wrong the moment every phone in the courthouse buzzed at the same time. She stood outside the marriage office in downtown New Orleans with a folder pressed tight against her chest. Inside that folder was a marriage license. Her marriage license. To Azriel Toussaint. The same Azriel Toussaint who had walked out of federal prison that morning. The same man her aunt said was broke, desperate, and dangerous. But the man standing in front of Solène did not look broke. Not even close. He wore a black suit that fit like it had been made by someone who charged more than Solène made in 3 months. His dark skin was smooth. His shoulders were broad. His beard was neat. His silver watch caught the courthouse light like it wanted attention. And his eyes were calm. Too calm. Like he already knew every secret in the building and was just waiting for people to lie. 2 federal marshals stood a few steps behind him, but somehow they looked more nervous than he did. Azriel did not look like a man who had just regained his freedom. He looked like a man returning to collect something, or someone. Azriel looked down at the folder in Solène's hands, then he looked at her face. "You're Solène Virio?" he asked. His voice was deep, slow, and controlled. Solène swallowed. She said. Azriel studied her for a quiet second. "You look like somebody tricked you." That should have scared her. Instead, it made her stomach drop. Because deep down, Solène had been thinking the same thing since she stepped out of her aunt's car. Before she could answer, her Aunt Zoria appeared beside her in a cream dress, gold earrings, and a smile so sweet it could give somebody a headache. "Solène, baby," Zoria said, touching her arm. "Do not stand there looking terrified. Mr. Toussaint is family now." Azriel's eyes moved to Zoria. The air changed. Azriel said, "Not yet." Zoria's smile twitched. Down the hall, Eleanor Whitcomb, the Toussaint family attorney, clutched her leather briefcase like it was holding a secret that might explode. She was a white woman in her late 50s, with silver blonde hair pinned too tightly and a face that looked like it had forgotten how to relax. Near the courthouse window, a Korean-American man in a charcoal jacket spoke softly into his phone. His name was Juno Park, though Solène did not know that yet. He watched Azriel with sharp eyes, then turned slightly away. "It's happening," Juno said into the phone. "The noon clause is waking up." Solène did not hear him. She was too busy staring at Azriel's outstretched hand. His palm was large, steady, warm-looking, but a trap could look warm too. Solène placed her hand in his. That was when every phone in the hallway buzzed. People gasped. A headline flashed across several screens at once. "Ex-convict billionaire Azriel Toussaint set to marry unknown court clerk hours after release." Solène froze. "Billionaire," her eyes flew to Azriel. Azriel looked at the headline, then back at her. His jaw tightened. "Mrs. Toussaint," he said quietly. "Whatever they promised you, they lied." Solène could ask who they were. The courthouse lights flickered once, then twice. Somebody downstairs screamed. Azriel stepped in front of Solène so fast she barely saw him move. His voice dropped low. "Not trust anyone who says they love you today." Solène had not come to that courthouse looking for love. She had come because 3 nights earlier, her Aunt Zoria sat across from her at the kitchen table and told her the last piece of her grandmother's life was about to be taken away. And if Solène wanted to save it, she had only one choice: marry Azriel Toussaint. 3 nights earlier, rain had tapped against the windows of the old Virio house in Tremé. The house sat on a quiet street lined with weathered porches, iron railings, and old oak trees that had seen more family drama than any church gossip circle. The paint on the house was faded blue. The front steps creaked. The roof needed work. But to Solène, it was not just a house. It was her grandmother's laughter in the kitchen. It was Sunday gumbo. It was hand fans in church. It was the smell of lemon oil on wooden floors. It was the last place Solène had ever felt fully safe. Solène sat at the kitchen table in her work blouse, tired from a long day at the courthouse record's office. Her feet hurt. Her eyes burned. She had spent 9 hours scanning old filings and listening to people argue over paperwork like the paper had personally insulted them. Across from her, Aunt Zoria placed a folder on the table. Zoria Virio never entered a room quietly. Even when she was sad, she dressed like she expected photographers. That night, she wore a silk scarf, red lipstick, and gold bangles that clicked every time she moved her wrist. Solène knew that sound. It usually meant bad news wrapped in perfume. Zoria sighed heavily. "Baby," Zoria said, "this house is in trouble." Solène frowned. "What kind of trouble?" "The serious kind." "Aunt Zoria, that is not an answer." Opened the folder and slid papers across the table. Solène leaned forward. Loan notices, late payment letters, a warning about foreclosure. Her chest tightened. Solène whispered, "This cannot be right," pressed a hand to her heart. I tried to fix it. I did everything I could. Solen looked up slowly. That sentence was dangerous. Zoria's version of everything could mean prayer, charm, or a decision nobody asked her to make. What did you do? Solen asked. Zoria looked away. Solen's pulse picked up. Auntie, what did you do? I borrowed against the house, Zoria said softly. Only to keep us afloat. Solen stared at her. To keep us afloat, Solen repeated. Or to keep your boutique open. Zoria's eyes widened like Solen had slapped her with the truth in public. Wait a minute, Zoria said. That boutique is a family business. No, it is your business, Solen said. Grandma's house was not supposed to be touched. Zoria leaned back and gave her a wounded look. That was Zoria's favorite performance, the betrayed aunt. 5 stars always sold out. Solen, Zoria said. After your mother left, who kept this family together? Solen went quiet. There it was, the old wound. Her mother, Callis de Virio, had disappeared when Solen was 7 years old. No goodbye, no letter, no birthday card. Nothing but whispers and grown folks lowering their voices whenever Solen entered a room. Zoria had raised her after that, but she never let Solen forget it. Zoria lowered her voice. I have carried burdens you know nothing about, she said. I made mistakes, yes, but I also found a solution. Solen's eyes narrowed. What solution? Zoria hesitated. Then she said the name. Azriel Toussaint. The kitchen seemed to shrink. Solen had heard that name before. Everybody in New Orleans had. The Toussaints were old money. Not old like a few successful years and a downtown office. Old like mansion gates, private foundations, political fundraisers, and buildings named after dead relatives. They owned pieces of shipping companies, hotels, clean energy firms, and real estate. Their main company, Heliodyne Global, had offices in New Orleans and Houston. Publicly, they were celebrated as one of the most powerful black-owned business empires in the South. Privately, people whispered. They said the Toussaints did not just buy companies. They swallowed them. They said business rivals lost contracts overnight. They said employees who crossed the wrong family member suddenly found themselves buried in lawsuits and debt. And Azriel Toussaint. He was the most whispered about one of all. 3 years ago, he had gone to federal prison for financial crimes tied to Heliodyne. The news made him look cold, greedy, and dangerous. His mugshot had been on every local blog. Some called him a fallen CEO. Others called him a mafia prince in a tailored suit. Solen had never known what was true. But she knew one thing. Men like Azriel Toussaint did not marry women like her. Solen leaned back from the table. No, she said. Zoria blinked. Solen, listen first. No. Baby, please. I said no. Zoria pressed her lips together. Then her voice changed. Less sweet. More steel. The Toussaint family needs a clean marriage contract for Azriel's release process and trust reinstatement. It is complicated, legal things. You work at the courthouse. You know how paperwork gets. Solen stared at her. What does that have to do with me? They asked for someone outside their circle, someone respectable, quiet, no scandals. Solen gave a short, humorless laugh. So they want a human receipt. Zoria frowned. Do not be dramatic. Auntie, you are asking me to marry a man who just got out of prison. He was framed, according to some people. According to which people? Zoria waved her hand. People. That is not a source. He is not asking for a real marriage, Zoria said quickly. It is an arrangement. 6 months, maybe less, you sign, he signs, the house gets saved. Solen's throat tightened. And what does he get? Zoria looked down at the papers. Access to parts of his family trust. Solen slowly stood from the table. So let me understand this, she said. You used Grandma's house as a bank. You hid it from me. Now the house is about to be taken, and your answer is for me to marry a stranger with a criminal record so he can access money. Zoria also stood. Do not say it like that. How should I say it? Like a sacrifice for family. Solen laughed once, but it cracked in the middle. Family sure does love sacrificing the person who had no vote. Zorya's eyes filled with tears. Solen hated that part, because sometimes Zorya's tears were real, and sometimes they were weapons. "It is just paper," Zorya whispered. "That is all. A name, a signature, you do this and the house stays. Your grandmother's house stays." Solen looked around the kitchen. The chipped yellow tiles. The old radio on the counter. The little ceramic rooster Grandma Virio refused to throw away because she said every kitchen needed one ugly thing to stay humble. Solen's chest hurt. Zorya saw the hesitation and moved closer. "If this house goes," Zorya said, "everything your grandmother built disappears. Is that what you want?" Solen closed her eyes. That was how Zorya trapped people. Not with chains. With love. By the next morning, Solen was reading every public article she could find on Azriel Toussaint. She sat at her desk in the courthouse record's office during lunch, scrolling carefully with one hand while eating crackers with the other. Her coworker Brielle leaned over the divider. Brielle Baptiste was 5'2" with a voice that could cut through traffic. She had worked at the courthouse long enough to know everybody's business and young enough to still enjoy it. "Girl," Brielle said, "why are you looking at that man like he owes you money?" Solen quickly closed the tab. "He might." Brielle narrowed her eyes. That was not a no. Solen sighed. "Have you heard anything about Azriel Toussaint?" Brielle's eyebrows climbed. "Has the Mississippi River heard of water?" Brielle. "He is fine," Brielle said. "Scary fine, but fine, like if a thunderstorm had cheekbones." Solen stared at her. "What?" Brielle said. "The man is handsome. That does not mean he is safe." Solen lowered her voice. "My aunt wants me to marry him." Brielle froze. For once, silence took her. Then she slowly pushed her chair back. "Solen, I know." No. There is my aunt wants me to meet a nice man from church. And then there is, my aunt wants me to marry New Orleans Batman after federal prison. Those are different buildings." Solen covered her face. "I know." Brielle leaned closer. "Is this legal?" "Yes," Solen muttered, "if I agree." "And do you agree?" Solen did not answer. Brielle's face softened. "Oh, Sol." Solen looked toward the records room, where rows of old files sat in quiet metal cabinets. "I cannot lose that house," she said. "It is the only thing left of Grandma." Brielle reached across the divider and touched her hand. "A house can matter," Brielle said gently, "but so does the person living inside the body being traded for it." Solen tried to smile. It did not work. By the third day, the papers were ready. Zorya drove Solen downtown in a white SUV that smelled like vanilla perfume and secrets. The streets were damp from morning rain. New Orleans moved around them with its usual rhythm. Buses sighing at corners, streetcars clanging in the distance, office workers crossing with coffee, tourists already confused before lunch. Solen wore a simple navy dress and flat shoes. She had twisted her hair into a low bun because her hands were too shaky for anything else. Zorya kept talking. "I need you to smile," Zorya said. "Not too much, just enough to look willing." Solen turned her head slowly. "Willing." Zorya gripped the steering wheel. "Do not start with me today. I am about to marry a stranger because you put Grandma's house in danger." And I said I was sorry. You said it between instructions about my facial expression. Zorya huffed. "This mouth of yours, I do not know where you got it." "Probably from the side of the family that pays bills before buying silk scarves." Zorya gasped. That was unnecessary. But accurate. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Zorya parked near the courthouse and looked at Solen. "Listen to me," Zorya said. "Azriel Toussaint is not a man to provoke. Be polite. Sign where a leaner tells you. Do not ask too many questions." Solen's eyes sharpened. "Why not?" "Because rich people hate questions." "No," Solen said. "Liars hate questions. Rich people just hire lawyers to answer them." Zorya's smile vanished. "Solen," she said quietly, "do not ruin this." Those words followed Solen all the way into the courthouse. Do not ruin this. As if she had created the mess. As if her obedience was the only thing standing between family and disaster. And that was how Solen ended up standing outside the marriage office, holding a folder with Azriel Toussaint's name on it, wondering if saving a house was worth losing herself. Now, in the courthouse hallway, the headlines still glowed on every phone. Ex-convict billionaire Azriel Toussaint set to marry unknown court clerk hours after release. People whispered. A woman near the elevator lifted her phone like she wanted a picture. Azriel turned his head slightly. He did not say a word. The woman lowered the phone. Solen noticed that. She also noticed how Zorya suddenly looked less confident. Eleanor Whitcomb hurried over, heels tapping against the floor. "We need to move this inside," Eleanor said, voice tight. "Now." Azriel did not look at Eleanor. "Who leaked it?" Eleanor swallowed. "I do not know." Azriel's expression did not change, but something colder entered his eyes. "You know something," he said. Eleanor's mouth opened, then closed. Zorya forced a laugh. "Goodness, everybody is so tense. It is a wedding, not a trial." Solen looked at her aunt. "Sometimes it is both." Azriel glanced at Solen. For the first time, his mouth almost curved. Almost. Eleanor opened the marriage office door. The ceremony room was small and plain, with cream walls, a wooden desk, and a fake plant in the corner doing its best under fluorescent lights. It was not romantic. It was not grand. It looked like where romance went to file taxes. The efficient, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, looked from Azriel to Solen. "Are both parties entering this marriage willingly?" the woman asked. Silence fell. Solen felt Zorya's stare burning into her side. Azriel looked at Solen. Not at Zorya. Not at Eleanor. At Solen. "If she says no," Azriel said, "we stop." Zorya made a tiny choking sound. Solen stared at him. That was not what she expected. Men like Azriel Toussaint were supposed to take, demand, control the room. But he had just handed her the power to walk away. Or maybe he wanted her to think he had. Solen's fingers tightened around the folder. Her grandmother's house flashed through her mind. The blue porch. The kitchen. The ugly ceramic rooster. She heard Zorya's voice. "If this house goes, everything your grandmother built disappears." Solen lifted her chin. "I am entering willingly," she said. The words tasted like rainwater and regret. The officiant nodded. Azriel said, "I am entering willingly." The ceremony was short. Too short for something that could ruin a life. Names were spoken. Papers were signed. The officiant smiled gently. "By the authority granted to me by the state of Louisiana," she said, "I now pronounce you married." Zorya exhaled like someone had just saved her from drowning. Eleanor closed her eyes for half a second. Juno Park, who had slipped quietly into the back of the room, looked down at his phone and typed one message. "Confirmed." Azriel turned toward Solen. There was no kiss. No romantic music. No soft touch. Just the quiet weight of a new last name Solen had not yet learned how to carry. "Mrs. Toussaint," Azriel said. Solen gave him a look. "Do not get comfortable saying that." This time, Azriel's mouth did curve. "Just a little." "Noted," he said. Then his phone buzzed. So did Eleanor's. So did Zorya. Another headline hit. Azriel Toussaint marries Solen Virio in private New Orleans ceremony. Solen blinked. Private. Juno looked up from the back of the room and said dryly, "Private is doing a lot of work in that sentence." Azriel turned to him. "Juno." Juno lifted one hand. "I am just saying, whoever leaked this has a gift for ruining mornings." Zorya frowned. "Who is this?" Juno smiled politely. A man who reads terms and conditions, very dangerous in rich families. Solène would have laughed if her life did not feel like a table being flipped. Asriel stepped closer to her. "We are leaving," he said. Zoria quickly grabbed Solène's wrist. "Wait, she is coming with me." Asriel looked at Zoria's hand. Zoria let go. "Smart woman." Asriel's voice stayed calm. "She is my wife now." Solène held up one finger. "Temporary wife." Asriel nodded. "Temporary wife." Juno muttered. "Healthy start." Elinor looked like she might faint. Asriel guided Solène through a side exit with Juno a few steps behind them. No one touched her, but somehow the crowd parted. The hallway opened like people could feel Asriel before he moved. Outside, a black SUV waited near the curb. Solène stopped. "I need to know where I am going," she said. Asriel opened the rear door. "Somewhere safer than here." "That is not an address." "No," he said. "It is a fact." Solène crossed her arms. "Facts can have addresses." Juno coughed into his fist, hiding a laugh. Asriel looked at Solène for a long second. Then he said, "Warehouse district, private residence, 10 minutes from here depending on traffic." Solène nodded once. "Better." Asriel stepped aside. She got in. As the SUV pulled away from the courthouse, Solène watched downtown New Orleans slide past the window. The city looked the same as it had that morning, but everything felt different. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Brielle. Unknown numbers. News alerts. Zoria. More Zoria. Solène turned the phone face down. Asriel sat beside her, silent. Up close, she noticed details she had missed before. A faint scar near his right eyebrow. Hands still and controlled. A wedding ring already on his finger, simple black metal. Not gold. Not flashy. Not romantic. A warning in circle form. Solène finally spoke. "My aunt said you were broke." Asriel looked out the window. "Your aunt talks too much for someone who knows so little." "She said this arrangement would save my house." "It might." Solène turned toward him. "Might." Asriel met her eyes. "If we survive the week." Solène stared at him. Juno, sitting in the front passenger seat, sighed. "Asriel," Juno said, "that was not comforting." Asriel did not blink. It was honest. Solène leaned back slowly. "I have been married for 12 minutes and already miss being single." Juno nodded. "That is fair." Asriel's eyes moved to her again, and for one brief second, Solène saw something behind the coldness. Not softness exactly, but exhaustion. The SUV entered the warehouse district, passing brick buildings, galleries, restaurants, and renovated warehouses with tall windows. It stopped outside a sleek building with private security and dark glass doors. Solène looked up. "This is a hotel?" she asked. "No," Asriel said. "Residential." The guard at the door straightened the moment he saw Asriel. "Mr. Toussaint," the guard said. Asriel nodded. "Malik." The guard looked at Solène with respectful surprise. "Mrs. Toussaint," Malik said. Solène almost turned around to see who he meant. Then she remembered. Tragic. The lobby was quiet and expensive, not loud expensive. Worse, quiet expensive. The kind of place where even the flowers looked like they had signed non-disclosure agreements. They took a private elevator to the top floor. Solène stepped out into a penthouse with high ceilings, dark wood floors, wide windows, and a view facing toward the city and the curve of the Mississippi River. The river moved slowly in the distance, gray-green under the cloudy sky. Everything was elegant, controlled, masculine, cold. But there were plants everywhere, tall palms, herbs near the kitchen windows, a lemon tree in a huge pot by the balcony doors. Solène paused at the lemon tree. Asriel noticed. "It was dying when I bought it," he said. "You bought a dying lemon tree?" "Yes." "Why?" Asriel took off his suit jacket. I related to it. Solène looked at him despite herself. Juno walked past them toward the kitchen. And that is the closest Asriel gets to emotional sharing. Mark the date. Asriel ignored him. Solène slowly turned in the room. You own this place? She asked. Yes. And the building. Asriel paused. Then he said, also yes. Solène faced him. My aunt said you were broke. Asriel walked to a side table and placed his keys down. I heard. She said you needed me because you had nothing. Asriel looked at her calmly. I needed you because certain people made sure I could not access what was mine without a legal spouse. Solène's voice sharpened. So I am a key. Asriel did not answer fast enough. That was answer enough. Solène laughed once, bitter and small. A key, she repeated. Great, wonderful. Grandma would be so proud. Her granddaughter finally became office supplies. Juno opened the refrigerator and said, for what it is worth, most keys in this family get treated worse than office supplies. Asriel shot him a look. Juno closed the fridge. Too soon. Solène pointed at Asriel. No, let him talk, because everybody has been talking around me all week like I am a chair in the room. Asriel's jaw tightened. Then he nodded. You are right, he said. That surprised her. He moved to the living room, but did not sit. My father created a trust before he died, Asriel said. After I went to prison, my mother and cousin froze my voting control inside Heliodyne. I could not touch certain assets unless specific conditions were met. Solène crossed her arms. Marriage. Yes. Why me? Asriel looked toward the windows. That is the question I am still trying to answer. Solène frowned. That is not funny. I am not joking. Juno came back with a bottle of water and handed it to Solène. Drink, Juno said. Rich family mysteries dehydrate people. Solène took it slowly. Thank you. Juno nodded. No problem. I am Juno Park, cybersecurity, former Heliodyne, current unpaid babysitter for a billionaire with trust issues. I pay you, Asriel said. Not enough for today. Solène looked between them. What is the noon clause? The room went still. Asriel's face shut down. Juno stopped moving. Solène's eyes narrowed. I heard him say it at the courthouse, she said, pointing at Juno. He said the noon clause was waking up. Juno looked at Asriel. She heard that. Asriel looked at Juno, clearly. Juno winced. My indoor voice betrayed me. Solène stepped closer. What is it? Asriel said, a family trust condition. That tells me nothing. It is complicated. So is health insurance, but people still explain it badly every day. Juno made a quiet sound that might have been a laugh. Asriel looked at Solène. For a moment, he seemed to weigh how much truth she could carry. Then he said, the noon clause is old, older than Heliodyne. It was built into my family's private contracts. It activates when there is a major legal bond involving a Tausend heir. Solène lifted her hand. Marriage. Yes. And after it activates. Asriel's gaze darkened. People start choosing sides. Solène waited. He did not continue. She shook her head. That is all I get. For now. Solène set the water bottle down untouched. No, she said. No more for now. My aunt lied. Your lawyer is scared. Your tech friend is speaking in riddles. The news knew about my marriage before half my family did. And I just found out I married a billionaire who owns a building but somehow needed my signature like a coupon code. Juno whispered, that was vivid. Solène kept going. So either somebody tells me the truth, or this temporary wife starts being temporary immediately. Asriel's face remained calm, but his eyes sharpened. You can leave, he said. I will not stop you. Solène stared at him. But if you go back to Zoria, Asriel continued, Ask her why she received 3 payments from a Tausend shell company in the last 18 months. Solen's breath caught. What? Asriel walked to a drawer, took out a thin folder, and handed it to her. Solen opened it. Bank transfer summaries. Dates. Amounts. Zoria's boutique business account. Solen read them once. Then again. Her hands trembled. No, she said softly. Asriel's voice lowered. I told you, whatever they promised you, they lied. Solen sat down on the edge of the sofa because her knees suddenly felt unreliable. The room went quiet. Her aunt had not just made a mistake. Her aunt had been taking money from people connected to Asriel's family, the same family that had now pulled Solen into marriage. Solen pressed a hand to her mouth. For a second, she felt like that little girl again, sitting on the porch after her mother disappeared, listening to adults whisper and stop when she walked in. Always outside the truth. Always too young, too poor, too tired, or too useful to be told the whole story. Asriel watched her, and something changed in his expression. Not pity. Pity would have made her angry. This was recognition. Like he knew that exact feeling. Being surrounded by people who called control protection. Being lied to by family and told it was love. Solen looked up. Why are you showing me this? She asked. Asriel said, because lies work better in the dark. Solen gave him a tired look. Says the man still not explaining the noon clause. Juno muttered, she has a point. Asriel ignored him again. Solen looked back at the papers. Her voice became quiet. My grandmother trusted Zoria. Trust makes betrayal easier, Asriel said. Solen looked at him. That sounds personal. It is. For a moment, neither of them moved. The tension in that penthouse was thick, not romantic yet, not safe yet, but alive. Something was happening between them, and Solen did not know if it was danger or truth. Maybe both. Pause right here. If Solen should pack her bags and leave Asriel's penthouse immediately, comment leave. But if something about Asriel feels like he is hiding pain instead of danger, comment stay. And if Aunt Zoria is already making blood pressure rise, hit that like button, because that woman is not done lying. Later that afternoon, Asriel gave Solen a room on the far side of the penthouse. Not his room, not some awkward honeymoon suite. A guest room with a lock, fresh towels, and a view of the river. Solen noticed the lock first. Asriel noticed her noticing it. It locks from the inside, he said. Solen nodded slowly. Good. I had Malik bring up your things from Zoria's car. Solen turned. She gave them to him? No, she tried not to. Solen almost smiled. And Asriel's expression stayed flat. Malik is persuasive. No one got hurt, right? Asriel looked offended. No, Juno, passing in the hallway with a laptop, said, unless counting Zoria's feelings, those were lightly bruised. Solen did smile then, just for a second. It surprised her. Asriel saw it. He did not comment, smart man. After a shower and a change into jeans and a soft sweater from her overnight bag, Solen felt less like a headline and more like a person. Not fully, but enough to breathe. She walked back into the main living area and found Asriel on the balcony, speaking on the phone. His voice was low. Press statement yet, he said. Let them guess. A pause. My mother does not get access to her. Pause. Asriel's hand tightened around the phone. Tell Yoni if she wants to speak to my wife, she can request it through me. Solen stopped near the balcony door. His wife, the words should have annoyed her. They did annoy her. But there was something in his tone, protective, possessive maybe, but controlled. Still, Solen had lived long enough to know protection could become a pretty cage. Asriel ended the call and turned. Mother wants to meet you, he said. Solen leaned against the doorframe. Does she usually get what she wants? Yes, at least he is honest. Juno called from somewhere inside. Asriel did not look away from Solen. But not today. Solen folded her arms. Why? Because Ioni Tausent smiles like a saint and collects weaknesses like jewelry. Solen's stomach tightened. She the reason you went to prison. Asriel looked toward the river. The silence answered before he did. She helped, he said. That was all. But it was enough to make Solen's anger shift shape. This man had been betrayed too, by his own mother, maybe. Or maybe that was just another rich family story designed to make her lower her guard. Solène was tired of maybe. She walked back inside. The penthouse had a study behind 2 dark wooden doors. One door was slightly open. Solène did not mean to snoop. At least, that was what she told herself for 3 whole seconds. Then she remembered she had been married through secrets. Snooping felt less like bad manners and more like self-defense. The study smelled like paper, cedar, and old coffee. Books lined one wall. Framed business awards sat on another. A large desk stood near the window, neat enough to be suspicious. Solène stepped inside. On a shelf near the desk, there were photographs. Asriel as a teenager beside a tall black man with kind eyes. That had to be his father, Dorian Toussaint. Asriel and a young woman who looked like him, probably his sister Mars. A formal family portrait with Yoni Toussaint seated like a queen in pearls. Solène almost turned away, then she saw the last photo. Her breath stopped. It was older than the others. A group photo taken outside a courthouse, maybe 15 or 20 years ago. Dorian Toussaint stood in the center. Beside him was a younger Eleanor Whitcomb. And next to Eleanor stood a woman with warm brown skin, high cheekbones, and eyes Solène saw every morning in the mirror. Callista Virio, Solène's mother. The room tilted. Solène reached for the frame with both hands. No, it could not be. Her mother had no connection to the Toussaints. None that Solène had ever been told. Callista was supposed to be a woman who left, a woman who chose not to come back, a woman whose name made Zoria sigh and change the subject. But here she was, standing beside Asriel's father like she belonged in a secret Solène had never been allowed to know. Solène's fingers shook around the frame. A sound came from the doorway. She turned. Asriel stood there. His face changed the moment he saw the photo in her hands, not anger, not surprise, fear, just a flash, but Solène saw it. She had worked in courthouse records for years. She knew how people looked when an old file reopened. Solène held up the photo. "Why is my mother in your house?" she asked. Asriel said nothing. Solène stepped toward him. Asriel. His name sounded strange in her mouth, too intimate for a man she had known less than a day, too sharp for a husband she did not trust. Solène repeated, "Is my mother standing next to your father?" Asriel's eyes moved from the photo to her face. Juno appeared behind him in the hallway, saw the frame, and immediately stopped. "Oh," Juno said softly. "That file." Solène looked between them. "What file?" Asriel's voice was quiet. "Solène." "No," she said. "Do not say my name like that. Not like I am about to break. Tell me the truth." Asriel stepped into the room. "Your mother worked with my father." Solène gripped the frame harder. "Doing what?" "Legal records, contract review, court filings." Solène's heart pounded. "Aunt said my mother was a receptionist before she left." Asriel's face hardened. "Your aunt lied." Solène's eyes burned, but she refused to cry, not yet, not in front of him. "Why would she lie about that?" Solène asked. Asriel looked at the photo again. "Callista Virio found something inside my family's business that she was never supposed to see." Juno's face was grim now. No jokes, no dry comments. Solène whispered, "What did she find?" Asriel took a slow breath. The beginning of the noon clause. The words landed cold. Solène shook her head. "No, explain it." Asriel stepped closer. "Father trusted her," he said. "He believed she could help him expose what the family had been hiding." "And then?" Solène asked. Asriel looked directly at her. "And then my father died." Solène's whole body went still. The room felt airless. Outside the window, New Orleans moved on like nothing had happened. Cars passed below. The river kept flowing. Somewhere, someone was probably laughing over coffee, not knowing Solène's entire childhood had just cracked open inside a billionaire's study. Solène looked down at her mother's face in the photograph. Callista looked young, serious, alive. Then Solène looked back at Asriel. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "What are you saying?" Asriel's jaw tightened. He looked like he hated the words before they left his mouth. Then he said them anyway. "Your mother is the reason my father died. Before this secret opens any further, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this marriage just stopped being a contract and became a buried family mystery. Comment, Callista, if Solène deserves the full truth about her mother right now." Solène stared at Asriel like he had slapped the air out of the room. "Mother," she said slowly, "is the reason your father died." Asriel did not move. Juno closed his eyes briefly as if he already knew those words had landed wrong. Solène placed the photo frame carefully on the desk, too carefully, the kind of careful that came before a storm. "You have 10 seconds to explain," she said. "And if the next words out of your mouth are another riddle, I promise this temporary marriage will become temporary faster than your lawyer can print an annulment form." Asriel's expression tightened. My father died because he acted on evidence your mother found, he said. Not because she hurt him, because he trusted her evidence enough to challenge my mother and the board. Solenne's anger flickered, but it did not leave. That is not what you said. I know. Then why say it like that? Asriel looked away. For the first time all day, he looked less like a controlled billionaire and more like a son standing near an old grave. Because for years, that was the sentence my family fed me, he said. Callista found the files. Callista started the war. Callista brought danger to our door. When my father died, they made her name sound like a match thrown on gasoline. Solenne's voice shook. And did you believe them? Asriel looked back at her. For a while, he admitted, that hurt more than Solenne expected. This man had been part of the world that swallowed her mother's name and spat it back as blame. Solenne stepped away from him. Mother disappeared when I was 7, she said. Nobody told me she worked for the Tausaints. Nobody told me she knew your father. Nobody told me anything except that she left because she wanted to. Asriel's eyes narrowed. Who told you that? Solenne laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. Asriel looked toward Juno. Juno's fingers moved quickly over his phone. I can start pulling old public records, Juno said. No restricted systems, just open filings. Solenne turned on him. You already knew about my mother. Juno lifted both hands. I knew the name Callista Virio was attached to an old internal matter. I did not know she was your mother until 10 minutes ago. Solenne looked back at Asriel. Did you know? Asriel hesitated. That hesitation told her everything. Solenne's voice dropped. Asriel. I knew last week, he said. Solenne went cold. Last week? Yes. The marriage? Yes. You did not think that was something I should know. I was trying to confirm it. Solenne stared at him. Everybody keeps trying to confirm my life without me. Asriel flinched just a little, but she saw it. Good, let it hit. Solenne picked up the photo again and held it against her chest. I want every file with my mother's name on it, she said. Asriel nodded. I will get them. No, Solenne said. Not when you decide, not after another secret meeting. Not after your mother smiles at me with pearls on. Now, Juno cleared his throat. Some of those files may not be here. Then find where they are, Solenne said. Juno looked at Asriel. Asriel gave one nod. Juno left the study. Solenne and Asriel remained facing each other in the heavy silence. He spoke first. You are right to be angry. Solenne gave him a sharp look. That sentence better not be your idea of comfort. It is not. Good, because it is terrible. For a moment, something almost human passed over his face. Then it was gone. Asriel reached into his pocket and took out a small black card. He placed it on the desk. What is that? Solenne asked. Access card, elevator, front door, garage, this floor. Solenne looked at it. Why are you giving me that? So you know you are not trapped. She stared at him for a long moment. That mattered. She did not want it to matter, but it did. Solenne picked up the card, her voice softened by 1 degree. And if I leave, Asriel said, take security. Solenne's eyebrows rose. Not because I own you, he added. Because my last name makes people dangerous around you. Solenne studied him. You always talk like the world is one bad phone call away from falling apart. Asriel's mouth twitched. Usually it is too. Solenne hated that she almost smiled. Again, she turned toward the door before he could see it. I am going to my room, she said. Asriel nodded. At the doorway, Solenne stopped. Without turning around, she asked, Did your father love your mother? Asriel was silent for a moment. Then he said, Yes. Solenne looked back, and she betrayed him. Asriel's face became unreadable. Solenne held the photo tighter. Then maybe your family and mine have more in common than I thought. She left before he could answer. That night, Solenne sat on the guest room bed with the photo beside her. Her phone buzzed again. Zoria. This time, Solenne answered. Zoria's voice rushed through the speaker. Solenne, baby, where are you? I have been worried sick. Solenne stared at the wall. Really? Of course, you left with that man like you forgot who your family was. Solenne's fingers tightened around the phone. Funny thing about family, she said. Sometimes they forget first. Zoria paused. What is that supposed to mean? Solenne looked at the photo of Callista. Did my mother work for the Tausaints? Silence, not confusion, not surprise, silence. Solenne's heart sank. Zoria knew. Auntie, Solenne said. Answer me. Zoria's voice came back smaller. Who told you that? Solenne closed her eyes. There it was. Not, that is not true. Not, where did you hear such nonsense? Who told you that? Solenne's throat tightened. It is true, Zoria sighed. Solenne, there are things you do not understand. Solenne laughed quietly. That seems to be the family motto. Not get smart with me. No, I think I have been too quiet with you. Zoria's voice sharpened. Be careful. Asriel Tausaint is not your friend. You are. The silence came again. Solenne wiped one tear before it could fall properly. Why did you lie about my mother? Zoria's breathing changed. Because your mother brought pain into this family, Zoria said. No, that is not an answer. It is the only answer I have tonight. Solen sat up. Did she leave me? Zoria did not speak. Solen's heart started beating fast. Aunt Zoria, she whispered. Did my mother leave me? On the other end, Zoria exhaled shakily, then she said, Stay away from old files, Solen. The line went dead. Solen stared at her phone. A chill moved through her, not because of what Zoria said, because of what she did not say. For 20 years, Solen had believed her mother chose to vanish. But now, for the first time, another possibility opened in front of her. What if Callista Virio had not abandoned her daughter? What if she had been running from something, or someone across the penthouse, behind closed doors? Asriel stood alone in his study. He looked at another copy of the same old photograph, his father. Callista Virio, Eleanor Whitcomb, a secret frozen in one bright afternoon. His phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number appeared. The wife found the picture. Good, let her keep digging. Some keys open doors, others set traps. Asriel's hand tightened around the phone, then a second message arrived. Your mother wants brunch tomorrow. Bring Solen. Asriel looked toward the guest room door down the hall. For the first time since his release, fear moved openly across his face. Because Asriel knew something Solen did not. The marriage had opened the first lock. The photo had opened the second. And if Ione Tausink got Solen inside the Garden District mansion before Solen learned the truth, the third lock might open too. And after that, nobody in New Orleans would be safe from what the Tausink family had buried. Asriel Tausink did not sleep that night. He stood in his study long after midnight, staring at the message on his phone. Your mother wants brunch tomorrow. Bring Solen. That was not an invitation. That was a warning wearing perfume. Outside the window, New Orleans glowed under a soft, cloudy night. The Mississippi River moved in the distance. The city looked peaceful from the top of Asriel's building in the warehouse district. But Asriel knew peace could be fake. His family had built an empire on fake peace. Beautiful houses, clean press releases, charity galas, scholarships, hospitals, art donations, smiling photographs with mayors and judges, and underneath all of that, contracts that trapped people, secrets that ruined families, promises made only so they could be broken at the right time. Asriel looked down the hallway toward the guest room where Solen Virio was supposed to be sleeping. His wife, temporary wife, as she had made very clear. He almost smiled at that, but the feeling did not last. Solen had found the photograph. Callista Virio standing beside his father, Dorian Tausink. One picture had done what 3 years in prison had not. It had reopened the wound Asriel had spent half his life pretending was scar tissue. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Juno Park. I pulled public records. Callista Virio had sealed filings connected to Dorian Tausink from 18 years ago. Some records are missing from the digital index. Not deleted. Missing. Like somebody pulled the ladder after climbing out. Asriel typed back. Find out who had access. Juno replied almost instantly. You know who had access. Your mother, Eleanor, and whoever Zoria was answering to. Sleep, man, you look like a haunted luxury ad. Asriel did not respond. He turned off the screen. Because Juno was right. Asriel already knew the answer. He just did not know how much truth would destroy Solen before the day was over. In the guest room, Solen was awake too. She sat by the window in sweatpants and a soft t-shirt, holding the old photograph in both hands. She had stared at it for so long that her eyes hurt. Her mother looked so young in the picture. Callista Virio had one hand tucked into the pocket of her blazer. Her face was serious, but there was something steady in her eyes. Something brave. Solen touched the glass over her mother's face. For 20 years, she had built a wall around one sentence. Mother left me. That sentence had shaped her whole life. It made her careful. It made her quiet. It made her afraid to need people too much. Because if her own mother could leave without looking back, then anyone could. But now that sentence had a crack in it. And through that crack came questions. Why did Zoria lie? Why was Callista working with Dorian Tausink? Why did Asriel's family blame her for Dorian's death? And why did Zoria say, stay away from old files, like the truth was still dangerous? Len's phone lay beside her. No new messages from Zoria. That silence hurt more than an argument. At 6:12 in the morning, Solen finally stood up. She washed her face, dressed in black slacks and a cream blouse, then stepped into the hallway. The penthouse was quiet. Too quiet for a place with secrets crawling through the walls. She found Asriel in the kitchen, already dressed in a dark gray suit, making coffee like sleep was a hobby he had outgrown. He looked up when she entered. You did not sleep, he said. Solen walked to the counter. Neither did you. I asked first. No, you stated first. There is a difference. From the dining table, Juno looked up from his laptop holding a half-eaten pastry. She is correct, Juno said. That was a statement, not a question. Gave him a flat look. Juno pointed at the pastry. I found breakfast. I am choosing joy. Solen took the mug Azriel handed her but did not drink. Your mother wants brunch, she said. Azriel's hand paused. Solen narrowed her eyes. Do not look surprised. Your phone was loud enough to wake up a guiltier person. Juno slowly lowered his pastry. That sentence had layers. Azriel leaned against the counter. You are not going. Solen gave a small laugh. It was not warm. Interesting, she said. I got married yesterday and somehow inherited a man who thinks he can give orders before breakfast. Azriel's jaw tightened. Ione is dangerous. I have met dangerous women before. My aunt wears red lipstick and rewrites reality before lunch. Juno nodded. Zorya does have villain brunch energy. Azriel ignored him. Mother will not threaten you directly, Azriel said. She will smile, she will compliment you, she will ask soft questions and use every answer like a blade later. Solen finally sipped her coffee. It was good, annoyingly good. She set it down. Then I will ask questions too, she said, starting with why she knows my mother. Azriel's eyes darkened. Solen. No, Solen said. Do not say my name like a locked door. I am going. Azriel looked at her for a long moment, then he said, If you go, you do not leave my sight. Solen smiled without humor. That sounded cute in your head, did it not? Juno covered his mouth. Azriel looked at him. Do you need something? Juno shook his head. No, I am just witnessing marriage. Solen looked back at Azriel. I am not your prisoner, she said. I know. I am not your fragile little secret. I know that too. Good. Azriel's voice softened. But if Ione invited you this quickly, she wants something from you. Solen picked up the photograph from the counter. She had brought it with her. Then she can look me in my face while she tries to take it. That was how Solen Virio ended up riding through the garden district that morning in Azriel's black SUV. The streets were lined with grand old homes, iron fences, oak trees, and porches that looked like they had watched generations lie politely over sweet tea. The Toussaint mansion sat behind a tall black gate, painted white with green shutters and wide columns. It was beautiful in a way that made Solen uncomfortable. Some houses welcomed people. This one inspected them. A guard opened the gate. Azriel's hand rested on the seat between them, not touching Solen, but close enough that she noticed. You can still change your mind, he said. Solen looked out the window. Oh, Juno, sitting in the front passenger seat, said, For the record, I voted for meeting in a public place with witnesses and mediocre muffins. Azriel said, Noted. The front door opened before they reached it. A tall black woman in a pearl-colored dress stood at the entrance. Ione Toussaint. She was in her early 60s, elegant and still as a portrait. Her silver-streaked hair was swept back. Pearls circled her neck. Her smile was gentle enough for a charity brochure, but her eyes were not gentle. Her eyes were numbers on a balance sheet. Ione stepped forward. Azriel, she said. My son! Azriel stopped at the base of the steps. Mother. No hug, no kiss, just two people using family titles like legal evidence. Ione's eyes moved to Solen. This must be the new Mrs. Toussaint. Solen lifted her chin. Solen Virio. Ione's smile did not move. Not anymore, dear. Azriel's body went still beside her. Solen smiled back. Names do not vanish because paperwork gets excited. For half a second, Ione's eyes sharpened, then she laughed softly. Ione said, She has a mouth. Juno muttered behind them, A good one. Ione looked past Solen. Mr. Park. Still following my son around with your little computers. Juno smiled. Still frightening rich people with passwords, yes. Azriel said, We are here because you asked. Say what you need to say. Ione turned gracefully. Brunch first, she said. Threats digest better with food. Solen blinked. At least the woman was honest about being terrifying. They followed Ione into a dining room that looked like a museum exhibit on wealth. Long table, fresh flowers, silverware lined up like soldiers. Sunlight poured through tall windows. A young woman sat near the far end, twisting a napkin between her fingers. She had Azriel's eyes, but softer. Marceline Toussaint Mars, Azriel's younger sister. When Mars saw Azriel, relief flashed across her face. Then fear followed it. Mars said quietly. Azriel's expression softened for the first time all morning. Mars. Solen noticed that. Whatever else Azriel was, he loved his sister. Ione sat at the head of the table. Solen sat beside Azriel, across from Mars. Juno chose a chair near the exit, which Solen respected deeply. Food came out quickly, shrimp and grits, fruit, biscuits, coffee, it smelled amazing. Solen did not trust any of it. Yoni stirred her tea. "So, Solen," she said, "what did my son offer you?" Solen looked at her. "A chair at the courthouse and a confusing afternoon." Mars pressed her lips together like she was trying not to laugh. Oni's smile cooled. "I mean," Yoni said, "what did he promise you in exchange for marriage?" Solen replied, "Less than my aunt did." That made Oni pause. Azriel's gaze shifted to Solen, but she kept her eyes on Yoni. Yoni placed her teacup down. "Zorya always was dramatic," Yoni said. Solen's heart kicked. "You know my aunt. New Orleans is small when people want money." Solen kept her voice steady. "And did you know my mother, too?" The dining room went silent. Mars looked down. Juno stopped pretending to eat. Azriel's hand curled slightly beside his plate. Yoni's smile thinned. "Callista," Yoni said. "Yes, I knew her." Solen's throat tightened at hearing her mother's name from that woman's mouth. "What was she to your family?" Solen asked. Yoni looked out the window as if remembering a mild inconvenience. "She was clever," Yoni said. "Too clever for the position she held. People like that often confuse access with importance." Solen leaned back. "Funny," she said. "People born important often confuse cruelty with wisdom." Mars coughed into her napkin. Juno whispered, "Lord." Azriel looked at Solen like he was torn between warning her and admiring her. Yoni's eyes turned cold. "Careful, dear," Yoni said. Solen smiled. "That advice keeps finding me. It must be lost." For 1 second, no one breathed, then Oni laughed. It was soft, polished, and completely empty. "I see why Azriel chose you," Yoni said. "You mistake courage for protection." Solen said, "And you mistake fear for respect." Azriel stood. "We are done." Yoni did not stand. "Mars," she said lightly. "Show Solen the garden before she leaves." Mars froze. Azriel looked at his sister. "No." Mars gave him a pleading look. She whispered, "It is okay." Solen understood at once. Mars needed to say something. Solen stood. "I would like to see it." Azriel's jaw worked, but he nodded. "I will be right outside," he said. Oni smiled into her tea. Mars led Solen through French doors into a side garden framed by brick walls and old jasmine vines. The air smelled sweet and damp. For a moment, Mars said nothing. Then she turned to Solen, eyes full of fear. "You need to leave him," Mars whispered. Solen's stomach tightened. "Azriel?" "No," Mars said quickly. "This house, this family, my mother ruins anything Azriel loves." Solen looked back toward the dining room windows. "Does he love me?" Solen asked. Mars gave her a sad little smile. "Not yet," Mars said. "But he will. Azriel acts like he is made of stone, but he is not. He is made of locked rooms." Solen did not know why that sentence hurt. Mars leaned closer. "Father left something before he died," she whispered. "A recording. I heard part of it when I was little." Solen's pulse quickened. "What recording?" Mars looked toward the house. "I do not know where it is now, but I remember one sentence." "What sentence?" Mars swallowed. "My father said, if Callista disappears, Ione knows why." Solen's breath caught. Before she could respond, the garden door opened. Ione stood there, smiling. "Girls," she said. "No whispering. It makes the flowers nervous." Mars went pale. Solen turned to Ione. "Flowers will survive," Solen said. Ione's smile stayed in place. "But will everyone else?" Azriel appeared behind his mother. His face went hard. "We are leaving," he said. This time no one argued. If Ione Toussaint is giving rich villain energy with pearls and perfect posture, hit that like button. And comment, watch her if Solen needs to keep both eyes open around that woman, because this brunch was not about food. Back at the warehouse district penthouse, Solen walked straight to the balcony. She needed air. Azriel followed but kept a careful distance. For once, Juno did not joke. He went to the study and started working. Solen looked out over the city. "Your sister said your mother ruins anything you love," Solen said. Azriel was quiet. She should not have said that. "Is it true?" Azriel stood beside her now, not touching the railing. "Mother believes love is leverage," he said. "If she knows what matters to you, she knows where to press." Solen looked at him. "Is that why you do not tell the truth?" His eyes shifted to her. "That is one reason." "The other?" "I learned young that truth given too early can get people hurt." Solen nodded slowly. "That sounds wise until the person being lied to is the one paying the price." Azriel looked down. She had hit something real good. Let it land. After a while, he said, "I spent 3 years in prison because I refused to sign off on contracts my mother wanted." Solen turned to him. He continued, voice low. "Heliodyne was supposed to build clean energy infrastructure. Solar grids, battery storage, storm-resilient systems. My father believed in that. I believed in it too. but parts of the company were being used to pressure smaller businesses into bad deals. If they broke loyalty with a partner, if a spouse signed against a spouse, if a co-owner betrayed another co-owner, the contracts shifted. Assets changed hands. Solen's brow furrowed. That sounds planned. It was. Noon clause, Azriel nodded. Every broken promise leaves a paper trail, he said. That was my grandfather's favorite saying. My mother turned it into a business model. Solen felt cold. That is sick. Yes, my mother found it. Part of it. Solen's voice went soft. Did your father try to expose it? Yes. And then he died. Azriel looked at the city. It was ruled an accident, he said. No clear proof of anything else, but after he died, Callista vanished. Alina stopped speaking unless my mother approved the room. Zoria started receiving money, and I was told to forget all of it. Solen blinked back tears. My whole life is sitting inside somebody else's cover-up. Azriel finally looked at her. I am sorry. Solen shook her head. Do not say sorry yet. I do not know what part belongs to you. That wounded him, she saw it, but she did not take it back. That afternoon, Azriel showed Solen the rooftop garden. It sat above the penthouse, hidden from the street by high glass panels and tall planters. There were herbs, citrus trees, flowers, and rows of vegetables growing in neat boxes. Solen walked slowly between them. You built this? She asked. Azriel nodded. When? After prison. Solen touched a basil leaf gently. Why? Azriel looked almost embarrassed. I needed proof that something could grow without asking permission. That sentence entered Solen quietly. She looked at him then. Not at the suit, not at the reputation, not at the billionaire, at the man. There was pain in him, deep pain. The kind that did not beg to be seen but still shaped every room he entered. Solen wanted not to care. But wanting and doing were different things. Azriel reached down and picked a small lemon from one of the potted trees. He handed it to her. Solen took it. Is this a peace offering? It is a lemon. That is not romantic. I was not trying to be romantic. Good, because citrus is a weak apology. His mouth curved, and there it was, a real smile, small, brief, dangerous. Solen looked away first. Her heart was acting reckless, and she did not trust it. Azriel stepped closer, slowly enough that she could move back if she wanted. She did not. For a few seconds, the city noise faded. He was close now, too close for a temporary husband. His eyes dropped to her mouth. Solen's breath caught. Then her phone buzzed. They both froze. Juno's voice came from the stairwell. I hate to interrupt whatever emotionally complicated plant moment this is, but we have a problem. Solen stepped back quickly. Azriel's face closed again, but not before she saw the same regret she felt. They followed Juno downstairs into the study. His laptop was open on the desk. Several records were displayed on screen. Alina Whitcomb was on a video call, pale and nervous. Solen recognized her from the courthouse. Alina clasped her hands. Solen, Alina said, I owe you an apology. Solen stood beside Azriel. That list is getting crowded. Alina flinched. Juno pointed to the screen. I found references to the Noon clause in old trust documents, Juno said. It activates fully when a Tausend heir enters a legal bond that can produce a betrayal claim. Solen frowned. What does that mean? Alina swallowed. It means certain sealed archives can only open if there is a sworn claim of betrayal between spouses, Alina said. The room went quiet. Solen slowly turned to Azriel. Between spouses, she repeated. Azriel did not speak. Solen's stomach dropped. You knew, she said. Azriel's jaw tightened. I knew part of it. Solen stepped back. Do not do that. Do not give me half a sentence and call it honesty. Azriel said, I knew marriage was required to unlock the trust. Solen's voice sharpened. And the betrayal. He hesitated. That hesitation was enough. Solen stared at him. You knew, she whispered. Juno closed his laptop slightly, looking uncomfortable. Alina looked near tears. Azriel stepped toward Solen. I did not know the exact requirement until Juno confirmed it. But you suspected. Yes, Solen laughed once. It sounded broken. My aunt used me to save herself. Your mother wants to use me to control you. And you married me while suspecting my pain might be part of your lock and key family circus. Azriel's face tightened. I was trying to find the evidence to clear my father, clear myself, and expose the system. At my expense. I did not want to hurt you. Solen looked at him, eyes shining now. That is the favorite sentence of people who already placed the knife. Azriel went still. Juno looked down. Alina whispered, Solen, I am so sorry. Solen turned to the screen. What did you help them do? Alina's lips trembled. I drafted parts of the contract language years ago, she said. I told myself it was only legal structure. I told myself I was not responsible for how the family used it. Solen's voice was cold. Paperwork can still bleed. Eleanor covered her mouth. Solène turned and walked out. Asriel followed her into the hallway. Solène, she turned on him. No, you do not get to chase me with that voice. I need you to understand. I understand perfectly, she said. Everybody needs me for something, but nobody respects me enough to tell me before the door locks behind me. Asriel's voice cracked just slightly. I am trying to stop my mother. I am trying not to disappear inside your plan. That silenced him. Solène went to her room and closed the door. She locked it. This time the click sounded like the only honest thing in the penthouse. That evening she almost refused to attend the Toussaint Foundation gala, almost. But then Eleanor sent a message. Yoni will announce a trust restructuring tonight. If she does, Asriel may lose legal standing. Your mother's records may disappear permanently. I am sorry. Please be careful. Solène read it twice. Then she dressed. She chose a deep green dress Zoria had packed without asking. For once, Zoria's dramatic taste had a use. Solène twisted her hair up, put on small gold earrings, and looked at herself in the mirror. She did not look like a victim. She looked like someone who had been underestimated too many times. When she stepped into the living room, Asriel was waiting in a black tuxedo. He stopped breathing for half a second. Solène noticed. She wished she had not. You do not have to come, he said. Solène walked past him. I am not coming for you. Juno, adjusting his cufflinks near the elevator, whispered, This marriage has range. The gala was held in a historic venue near the French Quarter, not far from the old streets where jazz drifted from bars and carriage wheels clicked against pavement. Inside, everything glittered: chandeliers, white tablecloths, champagne flutes, donors in designer clothes, cameras flashing. The Toussaint Foundation banner hung above the stage, promising community renewal and future innovation. Solène stared at the words. Rich people loved nomming the future while burying the past. Asriel stayed close beside her, too close and not close enough. Whispers followed them. That is her, the court clerk. He married her the same day he got released. She is pretty. She must know something. Solène kept her head high. Oni stood near the stage in a silver gown, smiling for photographers. She looked untouchable. Beside her stood Jericho, Jex Toussaint, Asriel's cousin. Jex was handsome in a flashy way, with a velvet jacket, bright smile, and eyes that could not stop checking who was watching him. He approached Solène with open arms like they were old friends. Mrs. Toussaint, Jex said. Or should I call you the surprise shareholder? Solène blinked. You should call me Solène. Jex laughed loudly, too loudly. Sharp, I like that. Asriel always did collect sharp things. Asriel's voice cooled. Walk away, Jex. Jex held up both hands. Cousin, relax, I am welcoming the bride. New family deserves warmth. Juno appeared beside Solène. Then maybe find some. Solène nearly smiled. Jex's grin tightened. Before he could respond, Ione lifted her glass and tapped it gently. The room turned toward her. Good evening, Ione said from the stage. Tonight we celebrate legacy. Juno muttered. There is that word again. Ione continued. The Toussaint family has always believed in loyalty. Loyalty to community. Loyalty to progress. Loyalty to each other. Asriel's face hardened. Solène felt something shift in the room. Ione looked directly at Asriel. But loyalty, Ione said, must be protected from those who exploit trust. Asriel's phone buzzed. He looked down. Solène saw his expression change, just a flicker. But it was enough. Mars, the message preview flashed on his screen. As she knows, I told Solène. She said if you do not end this tonight, she will ruin me. Asriel closed his eyes for half a second. Solène whispered, What is it? He did not answer. Her stomach dropped. Asriel, she said. He looked at her then, and Solène knew something terrible had just entered the room. This is the part where everything changes. If Asriel truly loves Solène, he has one chance to prove it. Subscribe before the gala doors open wider, because what he does next may make everyone hate him. Oni stepped down from the stage, still smiling. Jex moved closer to the reporters. Eleanor stood near the side wall, pale as paper. Juno looked from Asriel to Solène and whispered, Do not do anything stupid. Asriel's face became calm, too calm, the same calm Solène had seen at the courthouse. The calm that meant he had made a decision without asking anyone if they wanted to bleed from it. Asriel walked to the stage. Solène's breath caught. What are you doing? She whispered. He did not look back. He took the microphone from the stand. The room quieted. Ione watched him with satisfaction in her eyes. Asriel looked across the crowd. Then his eyes found Solène. For 1 second she saw apology there, raw, silent, useless. Then he spoke. Earlier today, Asriel said, confidential Heliodyne files were accessed and leaked to outside parties. Murmurs filled the room. Solène went still. Juno's face changed. Asriel, Juno said under his breath. No, Azriel continued. Those files were tied to my private trust, my late father's documents, and ongoing corporate matters. Solen's ears rang. He could not. Azriel's voice did not shake. I have reason to believe my wife, Solène Virio-Toussaint, was involved. The room exploded into whispers. Solène felt every eye turn toward her. Cameras lifted, phones pointed. Her body went cold. Juno cursed softly under his breath, then caught himself and looked furious. Alina covered her mouth. Zoria appeared near the bar, dressed in red, looking shocked for exactly 1 second before something like relief crossed her face. Solène saw it, even from across the room. Azriel kept speaking, each word cutting cleaner than the last. Until this matter is reviewed, Mrs. Toussaint will have no access to Heliodyne property, digital systems, trust documents, or company facilities. Solène could not breathe. The man who had warned her not to trust anyone who said they loved her had just become the reason she could not trust him. A reporter called out, "Mr. Toussaint, are you accusing your new wife of corporate misconduct?" Azriel lowered the microphone. He looked at Solène again. Say no, her heart begged, take it back. Choose me in front of them just once. Azriel's jaw tightened. Then he said, yes. Something inside Solène went silent, not broken, silent, like a courtroom after the final verdict. Oni's smile was tiny. Jex looked thrilled. Zoria hurried over to Solène, face full of fake concern. Oh, baby, Zoria said, reaching for her. Come here. Solène stepped away from her. Not touch me. Zoria froze. Solène looked at Azriel. The whole room seemed to fade around them. She walked slowly toward the stage. People moved out of her way, not because she was powerful, because pain has a presence too. When she reached the front, she took off her wedding ring. The simple band felt heavier than it should have. Azriel watched her, his face locked down, but his eyes were burning. Solène placed the ring on the edge of the stage. The microphone caught her voice clearly. Congratulations, Solène said. Whatever this was, it worked. Then she turned and walked out, no running, no crying in front of cameras, no begging. She walked through the glittering room with her back straight and her heart in pieces. Outside, the humid New Orleans night wrapped around her. The sounds of the French Quarter floated nearby. Music, laughter, traffic. Life continuing like hers had not just been torn open in public. Her phone buzzed with alerts. She did not look, she already knew. Her name was becoming a headline again. But this time, not as a mystery bride, as a suspected traitor. Solène reached the curb and finally let one tear fall, just one. She wiped it away quickly. Behind her, the gala doors opened. Juno stepped out. Solène, he called gently. She did not turn. Did you know? She asked. Juno stopped. He said, and if I had, I would have unplugged the microphone with my teeth. Everything, a broken laugh slipped out of her, then pain swallowed it. Why would he do that? Solène whispered. Juno did not answer right away. That was enough. Solène turned. He needed a betrayal claim, she said, Juno's face filled with guilt. Solène nodded slowly. So he made one reel. Juno looked down. Inside the venue, applause started. Not loud, polite, fake. The sound made Solène sick. She stepped away from the building. I am done being everybody's key, she said. Juno reached toward her, then stopped before touching her. Me call a car, he said. Before Solène could answer, a black town car pulled up to the curb. Not Azriel's SUV, an older car, polished and quiet. The back window lowered. Solène froze. A woman sat inside, her face half shadowed by the streetlight. Older, tired. But with the same eyes Solène had seen in the mirror all her life. The woman's voice trembled. Solène, baby, she said. Get in the car. Solène could not move. Her lungs forgot what they were for. Juno stepped closer, alarmed. Solène, who is that? The woman leaned forward and the light touched her face. Callista Virio, Solène's mother, alive. Solène's lips parted, but no sound came out. Callista's eyes filled with tears. Please, Callista whispered. Before Yoni realizes I came. Behind Solène, the gala doors opened again. Azriel stepped out, searching for her. His eyes landed on the town car, then on the woman inside. His face went white with shock. Callista, Azriel breathed. Solène looked from Azriel to her mother. The husband who had betrayed her stood behind her. The mother who had vanished sat in front of her. And somewhere inside that glittering building, Ione Toussaint was smiling like she had not just lost control of the one secret she had buried for 20 years. Solène opened the car door. Then she looked back at Azriel one last time. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. You wanted a betrayal, Azriel. Azriel's face tightened with pain. Solène climbed into the car beside her mother. Now you have one. Door closed. The town car pulled away from the curb, leaving Azriel standing under the French Quarter lights with Solenne's wedding ring still on the stage behind him, and the whole Toussaint Empire beginning to shake. The town car pulled away from the French Quarter curb, and Solène Virio did not look back. Not once. Behind her, Azriel Toussaint stood under the streetlights with a shattered look on his face. In front of her sat the woman who had haunted every quiet corner of her life, Callista Virio, her mother, alive, real, close enough to touch. But Solène did not touch her. She sat pressed against the opposite door, hands folded tightly in her lap, heart beating so hard it felt like it wanted out. The car moved through the New Orleans night. Music drifted from nearby streets. People laughed outside restaurants. Tourists wandered with drinks and bright smiles, unaware that inside one quiet black car, a daughter was sitting beside the mother she had mourned while the mother was still breathing. Callista kept looking at Solène like she was afraid Solène might disappear. That almost made Solène laugh, almost, because disappearance seemed to be Callista's special gift. "Solène," Callista said softly. Solène turned her head toward the window. "No," Callista's voice broke. "Baby, please." Solène's eyes stayed on the passing streetlights. "Not call me baby yet," she said. "You lost that right for a while." Callista went silent. Good. Solène needed silence. If Callista cried too soon, Solène might soften, and she was not ready to soften. Not after the gala. Not after Azriel had stood in front of a room full of cameras and accused her of betraying him. Not after her whole life had been dragged out like a contract nobody let her read. The driver took them away from the French Quarter and crossed toward the West Bank through the Crescent City connection. The city lights shimmered over the Mississippi River. Solène finally turned. "Where are we going?" she asked. Callista wiped under one eye. "Algiers Point," Callista said. "A friend has a small house there. It is quiet." Solène looked at her mother's face, older now, tired, still beautiful, but in a wounded way. Callista had silver threads in her dark hair. A faint scar crossed one eyebrow. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap. Solène hated that she noticed. She hated that some part of her still wanted to ask if her mother had eaten, if she had been safe, if she had missed her. But anger stood guard. Anger had earned its place. "Start talking," Solène said. Callista nodded slowly. "I worked with Dorian Toussaint," she said. "Azriel's father. I was not a receptionist. I was a legal records consultant. I reviewed filings, contracts, old property transfers, trust documents. I was good at finding patterns." Solène's voice was cold. "Apparently everybody knew that except me." Callista flinched. "I know." "No," Solène said. "Do not say I know like that fixes 20 years. Callista's lips trembled. "It does not." Solène looked away. Callista took a shaky breath and continued. "Dorian hired me because he suspected something was wrong inside the family contracts. At first it looked like aggressive business. Hard deals, ugly but legal. Then I found the repeating language." "Noon clause," Solène said. Callista's eyes widened. "You know the name." "I know enough to be angry." "You should be," Callista whispered. The car turned down a quieter street in Algiers Point. Small houses sat under warm porch lights. It was a peaceful neighborhood, but Solène did not trust peace anymore. Callista looked down at her hands. "Noon clause was designed to profit from broken trust," she said. "Marriage disputes, partner disputes, family inheritance fights. If someone betrayed someone close to them, the contract shifted power. Shares moved, debts activated, claims opened. The Toussaints did not just wait for betrayal, they created conditions for it." Solène thought of Azriel on that stage, his calm voice, his public accusation, his eyes full of apology while his words cut her open. "Azriel used it too," Solène said. Callista closed her eyes. "I was afraid he would." Solène's jaw tightened. "You knew." "I knew the clause needed a real betrayal claim between spouses to unlock Dorian's sealed evidence. I did not know Azriel would make you the spouse until Zoria called me 3 nights ago." Solène went still. "Zoria called you?" Callista nodded. She panicked. "She said the marriage was happening. She said she had gone too far." Solène's voice dropped. "So Aunt Zoria knew you were alive?" Callista looked ashamed. "Yes." Solène laughed once, low and bitter. "That woman raised me on guilt while hiding my mother had a phone number." Callista reached for her hand, then stopped herself. "I wanted to come back," Callista said. "So many times. But you did not." "No, why?" Callista looked at her daughter then, and there was no polished excuse in her eyes, only shame. "Because fear became a habit," Callista said. "At first, I stayed away to protect you. Yoni had people watching the house. She made it clear that if I came near you, she would bury you under the same legal traps she used on others. Then months became years. And after a while, I told myself you were safer without me because that was easier than admitting I was afraid. The car stopped in front of a small yellow house with a white porch. Solène sat frozen. That answer was not enough, but it was honest. And honesty, after all the lies, felt almost violent. Callista whispered, "I failed you." Solène looked at her. She said, "You did." Callista nodded, tears falling now. "I know." Solène opened the car door and stepped out before she cried too. Inside the little house, everything smelled like lavender and old wood. The living room had a worn sofa, a round table, and curtains that moved gently in the air conditioning. Solène stood in the middle of the room with her arms wrapped around herself. Callista placed a thick envelope on the table. "This is why I came tonight," Callista said. Solène looked at it but did not move. "What is that?" "The final map." Solène frowned. Callista opened the envelope and pulled out a photocopied court index, several handwritten notes, and an old audio tape in a clear plastic case. Solène stepped closer despite herself. Callista tapped the papers. "Everyone thinks the evidence is digital. Asriel thinks Dorian hid it in the trust archive. Leonie thinks she locked it all behind the Noon clause. But Dorian and I knew digital files could be changed, so we made copies the old way." Solène's breath caught. Paper. Callista nodded. Court transcripts, deposition notes, sealed clerk memos, audio logs from a private meeting, hidden under a false case number in the basement archives of the courthouse. Solène stared at her. "The courthouse where I work." "Yes," Callista said. "Dorian said one day the safest place for the truth would be somewhere powerful people never bothered to look." Solène almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was so perfectly insulting. All those years she had walked past metal cabinets, scanned records, filed names, and answered phones while the truth about her mother sat under the same roof. Solène touched the paper. "What is the case number?" Callista pointed. "Viro v. Lark Holdings. It looks like an old property dispute that never went anywhere." Solène frowned. "Lark Holdings? A shell company tied to the Tausaints." Solène's mind started moving fast. She knew the courthouse filing system. She knew the basement archive. She knew which old indexes were incomplete. She knew which clerk hated being rushed and which judge actually read emergency motions before coffee. For the first time that night, Solène felt something stronger than pain, purpose. Her phone buzzed. Asriel. She stared at his name. Callista saw it. "You do not have to answer," Callista said. Solène's eyes hardened. "I know." She declined the call, then she looked at her mother. "Tomorrow morning, they will expect me to hide. Cry. Wait for Asriel to explain why he publicly ruined my name." Callista nodded slowly. Solène picked up the envelope. "I am done waiting." Callista has some explaining to do. Comment, talk fast. And if Solène has every right to be angry before forgiving anybody, hit that like button. Because this is not just a reunion. This is 20 years of silence standing in one room. By sunrise, Solène had made 3 calls. The first was to Brielle Baptiste, her coworker at the courthouse. Brielle answered on the second ring, voice rough with sleep. "Solène, please tell me you are not calling from jail because I have $38 in attitude." "Everything," Solène smiled. "I need your help." His voice changed immediately. "Where are you?" "Safe, but I need access to an old public index and a record request logged before anyone from the Tausaint side can interfere." Brielle was quiet for 1 second, then she said, "Girl, I knew marrying that man was going to turn into legal jazz." "Brielle, I am up. Text me the case number." The second call was to Eleanor Whitcomb. Eleanor answered like she had been sitting beside the phone all night. "Solène, I know about Viro v. Lark Holdings," Solène said. Eleanor gasped softly. "It is real," Solène said. Eleanor's voice trembled. "Yes, I need you to file an affidavit." "Yoni, against everyone who helped hide this," Solène said, "including yourself." Eleanor was silent. Solène waited, then Eleanor whispered, "I deserve that." "No," Solène said. "The victims deserve the truth. Your guilt is not the center of this." Eleanor exhaled shakily. "I will do it." The third call was to Juno Park. He answered with no greeting. "Please tell me you are alive," Juno said. "I am alive." "Good." Asriel looks like somebody removed his skeleton and replaced it with regret. Solène closed her eyes for a moment. "Do not soften, not yet." "I need you to trace Lark Holdings," she said. Juno went quiet, then he said, "That name is older than Heliodyne." "I know." Asriel, "No, you called me?" "No," Juno sighed. "This is how I end up disliked by billionaires. You already are." "That is true. Send me what you have." Solène paused. "Juno." "Yeah, did he plan last night?" Juno did not answer quickly. Solène swallowed. "That is an answer." Juno's voice softened. "He knew a betrayal claim might open the archive. He did not tell me he would do it that way. If he had, I would have stopped him or at least tackled him near the shrimp table. Solène almost smiled, but her eyes burned. He made it real, she said. Yes, Juno said quietly. And that was wrong. Words mattered. Nobody dressed it up. Nobody called it sacrifice. Wrong, simple, clean. By 8:30 that morning, Solène walked into the courthouse where episode 1 had begun. She was not the same woman who had entered with a folder pressed to her chest, that Solène had been afraid to lose a house. This Solène was carrying 20 years of buried truth. Brielle met her near the records office, wearing bright blue glasses and a face full of concern. The moment she saw Solène, Brielle hugged her. Solène stood stiff for half a second, then hugged her back. I saw the headlines, Brielle whispered. I almost threw my phone into the sink. Solène pulled back. Please do not. We need your phone. Brielle wiped her eyes. Right, emotional support device. They moved fast, no secret breaking, no illegal access. Solène was careful. She filed the proper internal request. Eliner's affidavit arrived within the hour, signed and notarized. A judge granted emergency review because the documents connected to active corporate filings and possible public harm. By late morning, the basement archives were unlocked. The basement smelled like dust, paper, and old air conditioning. Rows of boxes sat on metal shelves under soft lights. Brielle held the request slip. Viero Vlark Holdings, she said. Box C1187. Solène walked down the aisle, counting shelves. C1184, C1185, C1186, her breath grew shallow. C1187, the box looked ordinary, brown cardboard, black marker, a little dent in one corner. Solène stared at it. Her whole life had been changed by ordinary-looking things. A folder. A signature, a photograph, a headline, now a box. She pulled it down. Inside were transcripts, copies of contracts, handwritten notes, and a sealed plastic sleeve containing an old audio tape and a small digital drive. Brielle whispered, Lord have mercy. Solène lifted the first transcript. Dorian Towsaint's name appeared on page 1. Callista Virio's name appeared on page 2. Oni Towsaint's name appeared on page 4. And by page 6, Solène understood why people had lied for 20 years. The documents showed a pattern. Small businesses pressured into loyalty agreements, spouses encouraged to sign against each other during disputes, family members pushed into legal conflict so the Towsaints could gain control of assets. No graphic crimes, no street violence, just polished cruelty through paperwork. Solène's hands shook. Paperwork can bleed, she whispered. Brielle looked at her. What? Something I said yesterday. Brielle swallowed. Well, you were right. Upstairs, the courthouse had started buzzing. Reporters were outside. Someone had leaked that Solène had filed a complaint. But this time, Solène was ready. She did not file the betrayal claim the way Azriel expected. She did not file only as an injured wife. She filed a public complaint including names from New Orleans and Houston, former employees, small contractors, family businesses, widows, siblings, partners, people who had been trapped by the Noon Clause for years. Azriel had wanted to unlock one archive. Solène opened the whole room. This is Solène's moment, not Azriel's, not Yoni, not the Towsaint families. If Solène should release the whole truth with facts, comment, release it. And subscribe for more stories where quiet women become everybody's worst surprise. By mid-afternoon, Heliodyne's stock was frozen pending review. The Towsaint Foundation Gala became a public relations nightmare. Jex went on local news and tried to smile through panic. Cousin Azriel has always been unstable, Jex said, sweating under studio lights. And this woman this Solène clearly manipulated. The anchor interrupted him. Mr. Towsaint court documents show your signature on several Lark Holdings transfers. Jex blinked. For once in his life, the man had no clever line. In the Garden District mansion, Ione Towsaint stood in her dining room watching the news. Her pearls were perfect. Her posture was perfect. But her hand tightened around her teacup until it rattled against the saucer. Mars stood near the doorway, pale but steady. You knew this would happen, Mars said. Yoni did not look at her. What I know, Yoni said, is that weak people mistake exposure for justice. Mars stepped forward. She said softly. Weak people hide behind family names and call it legacy. Yoni turned. For a second, fury broke through her polished face. Then the doorbell rang. Eleanor Whitcomb had arrived with legal notice. And behind her stood 2 investigators. No dramatic shouting, no chaos, just paperwork. The same weapon Yoni had used on others had finally come home. Across town, Azriel sat alone in the conference room at Heliodyne's New Orleans office. Juno entered without knocking. Azriel looked up. Where is she? Azriel asked. Juno folded his arms. Doing what you should have trusted her to do. Asriel closed his eyes. I thought if I made the betrayal real, the archive would open. It did, Juno said. She found a bigger door. Asriel looked down at the table. Yoni threatened Mars. I know, Asriel's voice broke slightly. I could not let her destroy my sister. Juno's face softened, but only a little. You destroyed Solène in public instead. Asriel flinched. Juno sat across from him. I know you love like somebody trained you for war, but love is not a hostage exchange. Asriel said nothing. Juno placed a folder on the table. Solène is holding a public statement at the courthouse in 1 hour. If you go, do not go to explain. Do not go to perform regret. Go to take responsibility. Asriel opened the folder. Inside was a transfer agreement. He read it, then looked at Juno. Restitution trust. Juno nodded. Employees, contractors, families harmed by the clause, you sign over controlling shares. The board loses the ability to bury this quietly. Stared at the papers. Everything his family had killed itself to control. Power, shares, legacy, the throne. His mother had taught him that keeping power was survival. His father had taught him power meant nothing if it fed on people. Asriel picked up a pen. His hand did not shake. Call the attorneys, he said. At 4:00 p.m., Solène stood on the courthouse steps in downtown New Orleans, not as a bride, not as a scandal, not as a key, as herself. Reporters stood below. Cameras waited. Brielle stood behind her on the left. Callista stood on the right, face tense but proud. Elinor was present too, pale and shaken but no longer hiding. Juno stood near the back, watching the crowd. Then Asriel arrived. The cameras turned fast. Solène saw him. For one dangerous second, her heart reacted before her pride could stop it. He looked different, still in a suit, still tall, still Asriel, but stripped of that untouchable calm. He looked like a man who had finally understood the cost of his own plan. He did not approach her. He stood several feet away and lowered his head slightly, not for the cameras, for her. Solène turned back to the microphone. Name is Solène Virio, she said. Yesterday, I was accused publicly of betraying Heliodyne Global. That accusation was false. Camera shutters clicked. Solène continued. But today is not only about clearing my name. It is about a system that used loyalty as bait and betrayal as profit. It is about families, workers, and business owners who were pushed into conflict so powerful people could gain more control. Her voice grew steadier. For years, people were told their pain was private. Their losses were isolated. Their shame was theirs alone. She looked into the cameras. That was a lie. The reporters, more people had gathered. Some were former employees, some were small business owners. Some just came because New Orleans loved drama, and this drama had court documents. Solène lifted a copy of the complaint. This filing includes more than my story. It includes many stories. And from this point forward, no one gets to use my pain as a private key. Asriel's eyes lowered. Good, let him hear it. Then Asriel stepped forward, careful and slow. May I speak? He asked. Solène looked at him. The crowd went silent. She could say no, everyone knew it. Asriel knew it most of all. After a long moment, Solène stepped aside. Asriel approached the microphone. Accusation against Solène Virio was false, he said. The crowd erupted in questions. Asriel did not look away. I made that accusation because I believed a legal betrayal claim would unlock evidence connected to my father's death and my family's contracts. I told myself it was necessary. I told myself it was to protect my sister and expose the truth. Turned towards Solène. But what I did was wrong. Solène's throat tightened. Asriel faced the cameras again. I harmed an innocent woman. I humiliated my wife in public to fight a system built on humiliation and betrayal. That makes me responsible, no matter my reason. Juno nodded once from the crowd. Asriel placed the signed transfer agreement on the podium. Today, I signed controlling shares of Heliodyne into an independent restitution trust for verified victims of the Noon Clause and related contracts. My family will not bury this with money. Not this time. Reporters shouted again. Solène stared at the document. She had not expected that. Maybe she should have. No, she corrected herself. She would not give him credit for doing the right thing late as if late did not matter. But still, he had done it. Later that evening, Zoria came to the old Virio house in Tremé. Solène met her on the porch. The blue paint looked faded in the soft evening light. The front steps still creaked. The ugly ceramic rooster was still visible through the kitchen window. Zoria wore no red lipstick, no gold bangles, no performance. She looked smaller. Solène, Zoria said. Solène leaned against the porch rail. Did you come to lie or confess? Zoria winced. Confess. Solène waited. Zoria took a breath. Tony paid me, she said. At first, years ago, it was to keep quiet about Callista. Later, it was to watch for anything connected to the old files. Then I borrowed against the house, and when I could not fix it, I let them use you. Solène felt the words settle. They hurt, but they did not surprise her anymore. That is a lot of betrayal for one aunt, Solène said. Zoria wiped her cheek. I told myself I was protecting you. Solène shook her head. No, you were protecting your comfort. Zoria nodded. For once, she did not argue. I am sorry, Zoria whispered. Solène looked past her at the street where she had grown up. I believe you, she said. Zoria's face lifted with hope. Solène continued, but belief is not the same as trust. Zoria nodded slowly. I understand. Good, Solène said. Because you are going to cooperate with the investigation, fully, Zoria swallowed. Yes, and after that we will see what kind of family can be rebuilt from truth. Zoria cried then, quietly, no performance. Solène did not hug her, not yet, but she did not close the door either. 3 months later, the Vireo house had fresh blue paint. The porch had been repaired. The roof no longer leaked, and the ugly ceramic rooster still sat in the kitchen because Solène refused to let anybody disrespect history. The house was no longer just a home. It was now the Vireo Legal Aid Center, a small nonprofit helping families read contracts before powerful people used fine print against them. Brielle ran the front desk twice a week and claimed she was assistant director of minding everybody's business. Juno helped set up secure systems and complained daily about ancient printers. Elinor volunteered legal hours and never again said, I only handled paperwork. Callista worked in the records room. Mother and daughter were not healed overnight. That was not how real wounds worked. Some days, Solène could sit with Callista over coffee. Some days, she could not. Some days, anger returned sharp and fresh. Callista accepted every version. She did not rush forgiveness. That was the first useful thing she had done as a mother. Yoni Toussaint was removed from the company and faced legal consequences through proper channels. Her public image cracked, and this time, no foundation gala could polish it back. Jex tried to blame everyone except himself, but the signed records had poor patience for charm. Mars left the mansion and moved into a small apartment near Magazine Street, where she studied architecture and learned what quiet felt like when it was not fear. And Azriel stepped down from full control of Heliodyne. He worked with the restitution board. No cameras, no grand speeches, no throne. He came to the Vireo Legal Aid Center every Friday at 5. At first, Solène gave him the worst tasks: boxes, broken chairs, printer paper. One time, she made him organize a supply closet with Brielle, who spent 2 hours explaining why men with cheekbones were still capable of poor decisions. Azriel accepted all of it. No complaints. One Friday evening, Solène stood on the porch holding a box of old files when Azriel walked up alone. No black SUV, no security line. Just him. He wore a plain black shirt, sleeves rolled at the forearms. Dangerous, honestly. Solène was annoyed that she noticed. Azriel stopped at the bottom step. Can I help? He asked. Solène looked at him for a long moment. Then she handed him the box. He took it and almost shifted from the weight. This is heavy, he said. Solène walked past him into the house. That was the light one. Behind her, Azriel made a quiet sound, almost a laugh. Inside, they carried boxes to the back room. When they were done, the house was golden with sunset. Real sunset. Soft light through old windows, not harsh, not blinding, just warm. Azriel stood near the kitchen doorway. I never apologized properly, he said. Solène looked at him. You apologized in public. That was accountability, he said. Not the same thing. She said nothing. He stepped no closer. I am sorry, Azriel said. Not because my plan failed, not because you found another way. I am sorry because I chose your pain without your permission. I called it protection, I called it strategy, but it was control. Solène's eyes burned, but she held steady. A wound does not become love just because the knife was held by somebody crying, she said. Azriel lowered his eyes. I know. Do you? I am learning. Solène studied him. That was better than a promise. Promises were easy. Learning took time. She looked toward the kitchen where the ceramic rooster sat proudly on the counter like a tiny, ugly witness. Grandmother used to say love is not proved by how loud a person claims it, Solène said. It is proved by what they do when they cannot get their way. Azriel nodded. She was right. Solène crossed her arms. She usually was, except about that rooster. That thing is hideous. Azriel looked at the rooster. It has character. Not flatter him. He already thinks he owns the kitchen. For the first time in months, they laughed at the same time, small, careful, real. Azriel's smile faded into something tender. Do you think there is a future where you can trust me again? He asked. Solène looked at him. She could have said yes and made the ending easy. She could have said no and made it clean. But life was rarely easy or clean. I think there is a future where you earn the chance to find out, she said. Asriel accepted that like it was more than he deserved, because it was. Outside, the evening settled over Tremé. The porch light came on. Somewhere nearby, music floated down the street. A neighbor laughed. A child called for someone to wait up. Life continued. But this time, Solène was not outside the truth. She was standing in the center of her own story, not as a sacrifice, not as a key, not as a betrayed wife. As Solène Virio. A woman who had been lied to by family, used by power, wounded by love, and still refused to let betrayal write her final chapter. The lesson was simple. Love without honesty becomes control. Family without loyalty becomes a cage. And betrayal may break a person's heart, but it does not get to decide the rest of that person's life. Sometimes healing does not arrive as a grand miracle. Sometimes it looks like fresh paint on an old house, a mother learning patience, a powerful man carrying boxes, a woman choosing boundaries without closing her heart, and one ugly ceramic rooster surviving every scandal like it had known the truth all along.